When I walked into that courtroom, my daughter Megan rolled her eyes and leaned toward her husband, Ryan, whispering something that made them smirk. But then the judge suddenly looked up from his papers, his eyes locking on me. If you're listening to this, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment about where you're tuning in from. His face froze as if he'd seen a ghost from his past. In a low voice, he whispered, "It's her." The entire courtroom went still. Lawyers stopped mid-sentence, the clerk froze, even the bailiff shifted nervously. Megan's smug look faded and Ryan frowned in confusion. They didn't know what those words meant. But I did. I'd lived long enough to know when fate was about to turn. They thought I was just an old woman clinging to a house, stripped of dignity. What they didn't realize was that I carried a story much older and stronger than their greed. Every morning in Springfield began the same way. I rose at 6, filled my old kettle, and reached for the chipped blue mug that had lasted more than 20 years. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen while I checked the African violets on the windowsill. My late husband Robert had loved those flowers, and tending to them kept him close. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was stitched with small habits and meaning. I hadn't traveled far or lived in luxury, but I gave everything to raising Megan. Working nights, cleaning offices, selling pies at church, mending dresses for neighbors, so she could have chances I never did. To others, I was just a quiet grandmother, but my hands carried decades of sacrifice. That Thursday evening, I made Robert's favorite, chicken and dumplings, the meal Megan had begged for as a child. My fingers ached from rolling dough, but it was the kind of ache that comes from love. I set the embroidered tablecloth I'd worked on when Megan was a teenager and placed fresh daisies in the center. I wanted her to feel this was still her home. When they arrived, Ryan went straight to Robert's old chair, turned on the TV, and acted like the house was already his. He wore a sleek suit, his hair styled perfectly. Megan stood there in the green dress I'd bought her for Christmas, her face cold. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, sounding like a stranger. I tried to offer dinner, but Ryan cut me off. "This isn't a social call. We have important matters." Megan nodded in agreement. She said the house was too big for me, that I couldn't manage it, and that they needed it for their growing family. My hands shook. "What are you saying, Megan?" Ryan leaned forward, explaining they'd found a retirement community where all my needs would be met. "It's the sensible choice," he said. I tried to explain that Robert had died in this house, that every wall carried our story, but Megan's face didn't move. "Memories are in the heart, Mom, not on the walls." Then Ryan pulled out paperwork, saying he'd arranged to move me to the front of the waiting list. I should be grateful. Grateful? The word burned. "I'm not leaving my home," I said firmly. Ryan's smile vanished. "Linda, be reasonable. You're older now. What if something happens when you're alone?" I knew it wouldn't matter what I said. They had already decided my fate. So instead I told them, "The chicken and dumplings will get cold. Let's eat first." But when I brought the food out, I saw Megan had only set 2 plates. They had never planned to stay. Days later, Ryan showed up with a real estate appraiser in a gray suit. The man walked through the house like it was already sold, pointing out outdated pipes and old tiles. I wanted to tell him those tiles had been placed one by Robert's hands, with sweat and patience, but to him, it was just a checklist. He even poked at the ceiling, talking about roof damage that had already been fixed. Megan followed him, nodding, never once looking at me. Then my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, appeared at the back door with a plate of cookies. She frowned at the sight. "Linda, is everything all right?" Before I could answer, Ryan stepped in. "Family business, ma'am. Linda's moving to a retirement community. We're just preparing the house." Mrs. Johnson's eyes widened, and she looked to me for confirmation. "Nothing's decided," I said quickly. "Actually, it is," Megan added coldly. Mrs. Johnson set down the cookies, squeezed my hand, and whispered, "Call me later." After they left, the house felt invaded. Curtains left open, footprints on my floor, even the air smelled of cologne and indifference. I almost called Mrs. Johnson, but then I noticed Megan's scarf on the chair. The blue cashmere I'd saved for months to buy when she got her first teaching job. She had quit teaching after marrying Ryan. She said it was her choice, but I always wondered. I folded the scarf and set it by the door. Even now, I couldn't stop being her mother. The next week, they returned with a lawyer. Ryan acted like the house was already his. The lawyer laid out documents across my table, saying everything had been arranged for my comfort. I scanned the pages. Transfer of ownership, permanent, irrevocable. My chest tightened. This wasn't selling the house. This was taking it for themselves. I need time to review these, I said, reaching for my glasses. And I want my own lawyer. Ryan laughed. That's not necessary, Linda. We've taken care of everything. But I stayed firm. I'd prefer someone look at them on my behalf. The lawyer, Michael Grant, glanced at Ryan with clear unease. Mrs. Smith, the retirement community won't hold your spot forever. This is time-sensitive. When I refused to sign, Ryan's polite mask dropped. His voice hardened. You're not in a condition to make decisions anymore. Megan is your heir. She's acting in your best interest. Pie condition? I repeated, anger rising. I'm perfectly capable. Michael added quietly, if you don't cooperate, we may have to pursue mental incapacity proceedings. The room spun. My own daughter, the child I had worked myself ragged to raise, was ready to strip me of everything. My hands shook, but my voice was steady. I'm not signing anything. Threaten me again and I'll call the police. Now leave my house. Ryan stood, his face red. This is a mistake, Linda. We're trying to help you. Help me. By taking my home? By declaring me incompetent. Megan finally spoke. Mom, you're being unreasonable. We're worried about you living alone. I glared at her. If you were worried, you'd visit more than twice a year. You'd call on days that aren't holidays. You'd ask what I want. For a moment, shame flickered across her face, but Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder and it vanished. We'll be back, Linda, he said coldly. And next time we won't be asking. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in Robert's armchair, the silence of the house crushing me. For the first time I wondered if they were right. Maybe I was too old, too fragile to fight. The thought cut deeper than any insult Ryan had ever thrown. My eyes lingered on the family photos. Megan as a baby, Robert at her graduation, Christmas dinners we once shared. I had given everything and now I was treated like a burden. Robert, I whispered, I don't know how to fight this alone. The next afternoon, wandering the house, I opened Robert's old desk. Beneath old bills and letters, I found a slim folder with a tiny lock. My breath caught. I had never noticed it. After searching, I discovered a brass key tucked in one of Robert's favorite books on investing. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were documents with Robert's initials. Most were contracts I didn't understand, but one page stopped me cold. A will signed just 6 months before his death. Line by line, my world shifted. Robert had been more careful than I ever realized. What Megan and Ryan thought they could take was nothing compared to what he'd left. For decades he had quietly invested, buying small properties, purchasing stocks, even land outside Springfield now worth a fortune. The numbers made my head spin. Then came the greatest shock. The very building Megan and Ryan lived in. They thought they were paying rent, but every check had gone into Robert's account, now mine. For 2 years since his passing, the rent had been quietly deposited, untouched. I wasn't just a widow clinging to one house. Robert had left me an empire they knew nothing about. At the bottom was an envelope in Robert's handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded it, hearing his voice in my head. My dearest Linda, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Forgive me for keeping this secret. I wanted it to be a gift. You worked harder than anyone I've known, giving everything for Megan and me. I wanted you to live without fear. I must tell you, I never trusted Ryan. His ambition lacks heart. That's why I arranged things this way. If Megan shows love and respect, she'll share this legacy. If not, you hold the power to protect yourself. Use it wisely, not to hurt but to teach. All my love, Robert. Tears streamed down my face. Even from beyond, Robert was protecting me. I replaced the documents, locked the folder, and picked up the phone. I dialed the number on one of the statements. Springfield Financial Services. Olivia West speaking. I took a deep breath. Ms. West, my name is Linda Smith. My husband was Robert Smith. I've just found some documents. There was a pause. Then her warm voice. Mrs. Smith, we've been waiting for your call for a very long time. The next morning, I wore my best navy dress and walked into Springfield Financial. The receptionist led me to a private office, where a woman in her 50s rose to greet me. I'm Olivia West. It's an honor to meet you. Her handshake was firm, her eyes kind but sharp. She didn't look at me with pity or impatience. She saw me. Please call me Linda, I said, placing Robert's folder on her desk. She nodded knowingly. William wanted it this way. If you'd known about the money, you'd have worked yourself to the bone for others. He wanted you to slow down to enjoy life. She opened her computer and turned the screen toward me. Let me show you what you own. For the next hour, Olivia walked me through assets that left me breathless. Apartment buildings, commercial spaces, stocks, savings accounts, all in my name, managed by Robert's trusted team. The Parkview Apartments where my daughter lives? I asked. Yes, Olivia confirmed. 12 units, fully occupied. Ryan's rent goes directly into your account. They have no idea. Robert set up a management company as a buffer. I sank back. Why wouldn't he tell me? Olivia's voice softened. He planned to, but his health declined quickly. In his final weeks, he made me promise to watch over you. She hesitated. There's something else. Robert asked us to look into Ryan. Nothing criminal but troubling patterns. Gambling debts before he married Megan. Questionable schemes. His company is downsizing and his job isn't secure. The pieces fit. Ryan's push to take my house, the threats, the urgency. He was desperate. And Megan? I asked quietly. Olivia shook her head. She follows his lead. Robert worried about her judgment. I thought about Megan's cold eyes, her silence as Ryan threatened me. It broke my heart, but I couldn't deny the truth. What should I do? I whispered. Olivia leaned forward. That depends on you, Linda. You have options now, many options. As we spoke, a plan began to take shape. I wasn't just going to protect myself, I was going to reclaim my dignity and maybe save my daughter from the man using her. I left Olivia West's office standing taller, a calm resolve settling where fear used to live. On the way home I stopped for groceries and ran into my neighbor. Linda, I've been worried sick, she said. I smiled, really smiled. Things are about to change, Carol. In ways no one expects. That night I brewed tea, watered Robert's violets, and for the first time in years I felt like I was beginning again. By dawn my mind was set. I laid the folder on Robert's desk and felt steady, almost unshakable. When Megan and Ryan showed up with movers and boxes, expecting me packed, they found me in my armchair, sipping tea. Mom, the movers are here, Megan snapped. I'm not leaving, I said evenly. Ryan smirked. Mrs. Smith, you don't have a choice. I met his eyes. You're right, Ryan. I don't, and neither do you. He waved the movers toward the living room. Not so fast, I said, lifting a deed from Robert's desk. Did you know the apartment you've lived in for 3 years was never yours? Megan blinked. We pay rent every month. To a management company that transfers it to me, I said. I own the building. Silence. Megan read the paper again and again. Ryan snatched it, paling. This is fake, he barked. Check the records, I said, calm as stone. His voice rose. Even if it's true, you can't stop us. We'll fight you in court. You'll lose everything. I folded my hands. On the contrary, you have 30 days to find another place. After that, the law lets me evict you. Megan gasped, eyes wet. Mom, you can't mean that. Family doesn't scheme to take what isn't theirs, I said. You made your choice when you tried to push me out. Desperate, Ryan hissed. Tell her, Megan. Tell her why she can't do this. Megan's lips trembled. Mom, I'm pregnant. The words cut deeper than any threat. A grandchild revealed like a bargaining chip. My resolve wavered, then I heard Robert's voice from his letter. Use it not to hurt but to teach. I straightened. Congratulations, honey. That doesn't erase what you've done. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Maybe we should apologize. Try to fix this. Ryan's face hardened. I'll never bow to her. She's manipulating you, manipulating all of us. I let the words hang. Megan clutched his arm. She's my mother, Ryan. We can't throw her out like garbage. He shook her off. You're weak if you give in. Something shifted in Megan then. For the first time she really looked at him. She turned back to me, voice shaking. Mom, I was wrong. I let him convince me you were a burden. It was easier than admitting I married the wrong man. I swallowed. Words are a start. Only actions prove you've chosen differently. That afternoon, after Ryan stormed out and the movers left, Megan sat at the kitchen table, hands clenched, eyes red. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Start with the truth, I said. And she did. He'd lost his job 6 months ago but pretended to go to work. The credit cards were overdue. He told her my house would solve everything. Sell it, start fresh, and dressed it up as worrying about me living alone. And you believed him, I said. I wanted to, she admitted. It was easier than facing our life. I took her hand, our first real touch in years. The baby? I asked softly. Real, she said, a fragile smile breaking through. 3 months. Despite everything joy stirred. You have choices to make, I said. They won't be easy. She nodded. I know. Stay here tonight, I told her. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. That evening I hummed while making up the guest room. The house felt different with my daughter under my roof again. Hopeful, fragile, real. I set a vase of fresh violets on her nightstand, then sat at Robert's desk and wrote a list. This was the start of a long road back. To family, to trust, to love. But for the first time in years I wasn't walking it alone. What would you do in my place? Have you faced something like this? Tell me in the comments, and say which city you're watching from. You've moved in with her, chosen her over me. Ryan's voice was bitter, his eyes wild. Megan instinctively touched her stomach. I needed time to think, she said carefully. James, you weren't being reasonable. He laughed harshly. Reasonable? We're about to lose everything. Megan's brow furrowed. Lose what? His hand dragged through his messy hair. The bank called. They're foreclosing on the cabin. Megan's voice sharpened. What cabin? We don't own a cabin. Ryan's eyes flickered. Lake Morrison. An investment property. Megan shook her head slowly. This is the first I'm hearing about it. I stepped aside. Then sit. But only if you can be civil. We gathered in the living room, Megan perched on the edge of the sofa, me in Robert's old armchair. Ryan looked cornered. I was trying to provide for us. Investments for our future. By lying. Megan snapped. By hiding money? You wouldn't have understood, he said sharply. You're too cautious. Sometimes you gamble big to win big. I leaned forward. Like you did with your job? His head whipped toward me. How did... I know about the gambling debts, the failed investments, the job you lost 6 months ago, I said evenly. Megan gasped. 6 months? You told me last month. Ryan's fists clenched. I had plans. The cabin was our fresh start. A cabin bought with money we didn't have, Megan shot back. You put it in your name? To surprise me. His excuse rang hollow. It needed work, but it would triple in value, he muttered. And how would you pay for it? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Pie house, I said. His silence confirmed it. A temporary solution, he whispered. Megan rose, shaking. Temporary? Like the horses in Atlantic City? Or the crypto scheme you blew thousands on? His excuses unraveled as Megan grew stronger. You used me, she said, trembling. You used me to get to my mother's house. That's not fair, Ryan protested. I love you. Was threatening her love? Was declaring her incompetent part of your grand plan? Megan's words were ice. He shrank beneath them. I think you should leave, I said firmly. This stress isn't good for the baby. He staggered to his feet. This isn't over. But the defeat in his eyes told me it was. After he left, Megan collapsed in tears. I wrapped my arm around her. You trusted someone you loved, I soothed. That's never stupid. She whispered, I turned against you. We all make mistakes. What matters is what comes next. Later that night, alone at Robert's desk, I whispered to his photo, you were right about him all along. I wish you were here to help us through this. The next morning as I made breakfast, the phone rang. Michael Jenkins, manager of Parkview Apartments, sounded tense. Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry. Mr. Carter caused a disturbance last night. Neighbors called the police. No one was hurt, but he smashed windows, punched holes in walls. He's in custody. When Megan came downstairs, I told her. Her face crumpled, then hardened. I need to see it. At the complex, Michael warned us it was bad. Inside, glass crunched underfoot, furniture overturned, walls destroyed. Scattered papers littered the floor. Bank statements, loan apps, betting slips. Megan picked up their wedding photo. The glass cracked across Ryan's smiling face. I don't even know who he is anymore, she whispered. While gathering essentials, Megan found a locked drawer in his desk. Using a hairpin, she pried it open, something I'd taught her as a girl. Inside was a folder. Smith House Appraisal and Sale. Her hands shook as she spread out the papers. Floor plans, sale estimates, even brochures for the retirement home. Beneath them were forged documents. Power of attorney, health directives, even a false dementia statement with my signature. I never signed these. Megan cried. I took the papers. We're going to the police. And my lawyer. Back home, after calling both, we sat at the kitchen table, shaken. How did I not see this? Megan whispered. Manipulative people hide who they are, I said softly. They show what you want to believe. She admitted, I gave up teaching for him. He said my career held us back. I reminded her, you can always go back. You were a wonderful teacher. She smiled faintly. The kids at Roosevelt Elementary still send Christmas cards. Then her face clouded. But with the baby, one challenge at a time, I said. First we deal with Ryan. Then your future. The doorbell rang. Olivia stood there, briefcase in hand, her expression grim. I reviewed the documents you sent, she said as I led her inside. Megan joined us and Olivia laid out our options. Ryan could face charges for forgery, fraud, even domestic abuse. But pressing charges would mean a trial, exposure, stress. Things that could complicate Megan's pregnancy. William set up a trust, Olivia West explained, opening her briefcase. We can use it to negotiate. Megan frowned. Negotiate what? A clean break, Olivia said. Ryan gives up any claim on your mother's property, your assets, or future inheritance. In return, we cover his immediate debts and give him a modest one-time payment to start over. Why give him anything? Megan's voice was sharp. Because lawsuits are costly and stressful, Olivia replied. Sometimes the cleanest cut heals fastest. Megan struggled, torn between anger and practicality. I touched her arm. It's your decision, honey. Your husband, your future. She rested her hand on her belly. And my child's. After a long pause, she nodded. Make the offer. I want him gone. Olivia left to draft papers and Megan and I passed the day quietly, she sorting through what we'd salvaged, me cooking comfort food. That evening, as we washed dishes together, she blurted, I keep thinking about Dad. How he knew, how he tried to protect you. Your father always saw people clearly, I said. It was his gift. Her voice dropped. Did he see me? Did he know I'd betray you like this? I turned to her. Your father loved you completely. He knew you'd make mistakes, but he trusted your heart. He'd forgive you instantly, just as I do. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't deserve it. I wiped one away. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about love and second chances. She cried in my arms for her broken marriage, for lost years, and, maybe, for a new beginning. The next morning brought worse news. Ryan had been arrested trying to break into our house at night. A neighbor saw him forcing the back door and called police. He was carrying documents, floor plans, financial papers. He says he was just retrieving belongings, the officer explained, but with the restraining order filed yesterday. Megan's face went pale. I filed it yesterday afternoon. How did he know so soon? The officer shrugged. Clerks, contacts, sometimes things leak. After he left, Megan paced. He won't stop, Mom. He's desperate. I remembered Olivia's words. Clean breaks. Maybe negotiation wouldn't be enough. We called her and she came with Robert Chin, a private investigator who had once worked with Robert. He laid out a file. Ryan's gambling goes back years. At a former job, money went missing from accounts he managed. They let him go quietly. William uncovered this during his background check. Megan looked crushed. So he lost that job for theft. Robert nodded. And that cabin? It's not just foreclosure. He took out a second mortgage with shady paperwork. The bank suspects fraud. He's drowning, I murmured. Olivia's eyes hardened. We use this. If Ryan knows we can expose him, he'll take the settlement and disappear. Robert outlined the plan. A mediated meeting, evidence on the table, his choice clear. Accept the deal or face charges for fraud, forgery, theft, even violation of the restraining order. 2 days later we sat across from Ryan in Olivia's office. He looked ragged, his young lawyer whispering frantically in his ear. Olivia presented each piece of evidence, document after damning document. Finally, she slid the settlement across the table. Your debt's cleared $50,000 to start fresh. In return, you give up all claims to Linda or Megan's property, sign the divorce papers, and agree to move at least 500 miles from Springfield. Ryan paled. He looked at Megan, pleading. You can't do this, we're having a baby. We're a family. She met his gaze, steady at last. No, Ryan. We're not. You ended that when you tried to steal from my mother, when you forged my signature, when you lied for years. Olivia's voice stayed calm. Refuse and we proceed with criminal charges. The prosecutor will see everything. Ryan's lawyer urged him to accept. Olivia gave him 24 hours. As we left, Ryan called after Megan. I did love you in my way. Megan's reply was soft but firm. Your way wasn't good enough. Not for me and not for our child. Outside, safe in Olivia's car, Megan broke down. 3 years with a stranger. Like everything was a lie. I held her close. Not everything. The love you gave was real. Who you are is real. And this baby, that's as real as it gets. That night, as a spring storm rattled the windows, Megan and I sat in the kitchen sipping chamomile tea. The house creaked around us, a comfort I'd always known. I keep thinking about what comes next, she whispered. After the divorce, after the baby, what my life will look like. What do you want it to look like? I asked. She thought for a long moment. I want to teach again. I miss the classroom. And I want my child to grow up knowing what real love is. Not control like Ryan gave, but the steady kind Dad gave you. I smiled. Then that's what we'll work toward. Not easy. But possible. The next day Ryan accepted. Papers were signed, agreements made. Within a week he was gone from Springfield. The divorce would take time, but with his consent, it was only paperwork. Megan moved into my house fully now, not temporary but a true new beginning. We turned the study into a nursery, painting the walls a soft spring green. Every brushstroke felt like healing, like taking back what almost slipped away. One evening while I was making dinner, I heard Megan call from upstairs. I found her on the nursery floor, boxes open around her. We're fine, Mom, she said quickly. Look what I found. In her hands was a small quilt, moons and stars stitched across the faded fabric. I knew it at once. Your baby blanket, I whispered. I made it when I was pregnant with you. Megan traced the stitches. You wrapped me in it when I had nightmares. You said it was full of love. I knelt beside her. Then it can do the same for your little one. She looked up, eyes bright. I want to be the kind of mom you are, patient, kind, strong. You will be, I told her. And when it's hard, I'll be right here. Weeks slipped into a steadier rhythm. Megan started online courses to renew her teaching license. I kept meeting with Olivia, learning how to manage the wealth Robert left. The house Ryan tried to take became a true home again. Purposeful, hopeful. At the 20-week appointment we learned it was a girl. On the drive home Megan went quiet. Names, she said. If it's okay with you, I want to name her Ruby, for Dad, Robert. My throat tightened. He'd have loved that, her and the name. That evening as I watered Robert's violets, a plant that hadn't bloomed in years opened one perfect purple flower. You see that, Robert? I murmured. Life goes on. 2 months after Ryan left, Robert Chin called early, his voice urgent. Mrs. Smith, is Megan with you? Ryan Carter's back in Springfield. He's asking about your assets, about Robert's investments. I think someone tipped him off. Megan had gone pale. He's coming back for more, she whispered. We called Olivia West. File for an immediate injunction, she said. And it's time to contact Judge Thomas Reed. The judge? I asked. Robert mentioned him, but I never connected the dots. He and Robert were close, Olivia said. He's been watching from a respectful distance. I think he'll help. That afternoon we met in Judge Reed's chambers. He was in his 60s, kind eyes, a steady presence. Linda Smith, he said warmly. Robert spoke of you often. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. He listened, then grew brisk. Ryan's return violates your settlement. We can act. Megan's hand covered her belly. Legally, how much can we do? A lot, he said, but I also care about your health. He turned to me. Robert once asked me to look out for you. You've handled this remarkably. Now let me help. We need to end it, I said. He nodded. The plan was simple. Through official channels, Ryan would be notified his presence voided the deal. All support would cease and charges would be filed. At the same time, he'd be invited to a courthouse meeting. A last chance to renegotiate before things got worse. He'll come, Olivia said. Men like this think they can talk their way out. And when he does, Judge Reed added, he'll face civil penalties and a formal hearing. Do I have to be there? Megan asked. No, I answered before anyone else. You won't face him again. I will. It's what Robert would have wanted, for me to protect her and finish what he started. That night I wrote Robert a letter I knew he'd never read. I thanked him for the protections he'd set in motion, for teaching me I was worthy of defense. I told him about Megan finding her way back, about baby Ruby, about the courage I finally felt. I tucked the letter beside his violets and went to bed ready for morning. The day of the courthouse meeting dawned bright and clear. I dressed in the simple blue suit I wore to Robert's funeral, a reminder of why I was fighting. Megan insisted on driving. I won't go in, she promised, but I need to be nearby. At the courthouse, Olivia met me at the door, composed and fierce. Ryan arrived 10 minutes ago with a new, aggressive lawyer, she said. Everything is in place. Remember, Linda, no matter what he says, you have truth on your side. We walked the echoing corridor to courtroom C. Robert Chin waited outside, giving me a steady nod. The room itself was smaller than I expected, almost intimate. Ryan sat with his lawyer, a sharp-featured young man in an expensive suit. They whispered together, but Ryan's head snapped up when the door opened. His eyes met mine, not angry but calculating. Olivia guided me to our table, laying out her files with calm precision. The room filled slowly, court officers, a stenographer, and Robert Chin taking a quiet seat in back. The air buzzed with nervous tension, like the sky before a storm. At 10 o'clock sharp, the bailiff called us to rise. The Honorable Judge Thomas Reed entered, robes flowing, his gaze steady as it swept the room. When it landed on me, he gave a slight nod. Be seated. This is a preliminary hearing on the violation of settlement terms between Linda Smith and Ryan Carter. Both parties are present with counsel. He glanced at Ryan. Mr. Carter, you were prohibited from returning to Springfield under your settlement. Yet here you are. Explain. Ryan's lawyer rose smoothly. Your Honor, my client had compelling reasons. We have evidence that key facts were withheld. Material concealment of wealth meant to defraud my client's wife of her rightful inheritance. My face burned, but Olivia's hand pressed mine still. That's a serious allegation, Judge Reed said. Evidence. The lawyer smiled, producing papers. Bank records show large transfers before Robert Smith's death. Signs of hidden assets. My mind raced. Robert had planned so carefully. Judge Reed looked down at the records, then back at him. I should disclose something. I knew Robert Smith. We worked on charitable boards together. He was a man of integrity, transparent in finances. Any claim of fraud would demand extraordinary proof. The lawyer stiffened. Given your connection, perhaps this case should be reassigned. Judge Reed nodded. Fair. But before I decide, let's hear from Mrs. Smith's counsel. Olivia rose smoothly. We welcome scrutiny. In fact, we've prepared a full accounting. She placed a thick folder on the bench. All transfers were legitimate, properly reported, and designed for protection, not concealment. As the judge flipped through, the door opened softly. I didn't look at first, assuming it was staff. But Judge Reed froze. His eyes locked on a woman in her 60s, elegant, silver streaks in dark hair. For a heartbeat, the courtroom held its breath. James's lawyer pushed forward. Your Honor. Judge Reed collected himself. Proceed. But I saw his eyes drift back to her again and again. For the next hour, arguments volleyed. Ryan's lawyer claimed Megan had been coerced into divorce, that I manipulated her, that the settlement was unfair. Olivia countered with forged documents, gambling debts, and fraudulent loans. Still, Judge Reed's attention wavered, his gaze flicking to the woman. During recess, Olivia leaned close. Do you know who she is? That's Eleanor Winters, Judge Reed's former fiancée from law school. They were engaged 30 years ago, then suddenly split. My breath caught. 30 years ago. when Robert and I had just married and I worked as a courthouse secretary. A memory stirred of a young law clerk, overwhelmed and near tears in the break room. I had stayed late to comfort him, bring coffee, help with briefs. His name, Marcus Ellery. Judge Reed's first name, Marcus? I whispered. Olivia blinked. Yes. Richard Marcus Reed. Why? Before I could explain, the bailiff called us back. Judge Reed's demeanor had sharpened. Having reviewed both sides, I find that Mr. Carter violated his settlement. His allegations of concealed assets are without merit. Ryan's lawyer tried to object. Reed silenced him with a hand. Further, given his repeated fraud, I reinstate all criminal charges conditionally dropped. Ryan lurched up, shouting, "You can't do this. It's a setup." "Sit down, Mr. Carter," Judge Reed commanded. "One more outburst and I hold you in contempt." Ryan collapsed into his chair, fury blazing. "Additionally, I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. Mr. Carter must remain 500 yards from Linda and Megan Smith, their home or any property they own. Court officers, escort him for processing on charges of forgery, fraud, and violation of orders. Bail will be set tomorrow morning." Murmurs swept the courtroom as two officers closed in. Ryan's lawyer whispered frantically, but Ryan stared at me, hatred burning cold in his eyes. A shiver ran through me, but I didn't look away. Judge Reed stood. Court adjourned. "Mrs. Smith, Ms. West, please remain." As the room cleared, I noticed Eleanor slip out the back. Judge Reed's eyes followed her, regret flashing across his face before he turned back to us. When the room was empty, he stepped down from the bench, voice softer now. "Mrs. Smith, I owe you an explanation. 30 years ago I was a clerk here, overwhelmed, ready to quit law altogether. A secretary stayed late once to help me," Judge Reed said, his voice softening. "She brought coffee, helped me sort briefs for the Harlan case, told me I had what it took if I just believed in myself." My breath caught. "Marcus," I whispered. "You were so tired you could barely stand." His smile warmed his stern face. "That secretary was you, Mrs. Smith. You saved my career that night. And now, after all these years, I can finally repay that kindness." Olivia looked between us, surprised. "But the ruling, was it fair?" I asked. Judge Reed straightened. "Absolutely. Ryan Carter broke the law. The evidence was overwhelming. My personal knowledge of you and Robert only confirmed what the facts already showed, that you were the wronged party, and justice demanded this outcome." His eyes drifted to the door where Eleanor had left. Seeing her today brought it all back. How close I came to giving up, how one small kindness changed everything. Eleanor wanted me to join her father's firm, but I chose public service. She couldn't accept that, so we parted ways. I've never regretted it. As Olivia and I left, I felt lighter than I had in months. Ryan was facing prison. Megan and her baby were safe. Our home would remain ours. In the car, Megan burst into tears of relief. "It's over?" she asked. "It's over," I confirmed, holding her hand. That evening, Judge Reed called. "Linda, outside court, please call me Marcus. Eleanor remembered you too. She'd like us to have dinner together to talk about old times." The invitation startled me. I wouldn't want to intrude. "Not at all," he assured me. "She specifically wanted to thank you. I told her years ago about the secretary who saved me." Smiling, I agreed. Dinner turned out warm and honest. Eleanor admitted, "I was young, ambitious, and blind. I wanted Marcus to chase money and status. I couldn't see the worth in public service. Now I do." She glanced at him with a softened smile. "We've both lived full lives, but it's good to reconnect and remember what matters." I understood. Despite betrayal and hardship, the core of who we were remained. Changed, stronger but intact. As Megan's due date neared, my thoughts shifted to the future. The house that Ryan had tried to take now felt too large for just us, especially with the wealth Robert had left. One morning at breakfast, I said carefully, "This house has been good to us, but it's more than we need. And there are women like me out there, pushed aside by the people who should protect them." Megan's eyes softened. "What are you thinking, Mom?" "I want to use part of Robert's legacy to create a foundation. A place where older women abandoned or abused can find safety and dignity." Megan reached across the table. "That's beautiful. Dad would be proud." I smiled. "I thought we could call it the Second Porch Foundation. Because every woman deserves another place to sit, to breathe, and to belong when her first porch has been taken away. Tears welled in Megan's eyes. I love it. And I want to help. With Olivia's guidance, we bought a large Victorian house at the edge of town and began renovations. The work filled our days with new energy. Megan designed a children's playroom and library. I oversaw the garden and residence spaces. 2 weeks before Megan's due date, our first 3 residents arrived. Margaret, whose son sold her home while she was hospitalized. Dorothy, abandoned after 40 years of marriage. And Sophia, who fled abuse with nothing but the clothes on her back. They formed a small, healing community. Margaret untangling Dorothy's finances, Dorothy teaching Sophia to garden, Sophia tutoring Margaret's grandson. Watching them rebuild their lives felt like witnessing daily miracles. The local paper ran a story and letters poured in from across the country. Women sharing their own stories, asking for help, offering support. This can't be the end, I told Olivia one afternoon. We need to expand. There are too many women like us. Olivia nodded. Robert would say the same. He always believed resources should create real change. Olivia once told me Robert's giving wasn't a secret, just another way he tried to shield me from worry. Scholarships, small business grants, community programs. Always anonymous, always for those most in need. A quiet pride filled me. Then we'll continue that legacy, I decided. Expand the foundation. Build more second porch homes. On a bright June morning, while reviewing plans for our second location, Megan's water broke. The rush to the hospital, the long hours of labor, the waiting, it all blurred together. And then, at last, my granddaughter was placed in my arms. Ruby Smith, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with her grandfather's chin and her mother's curious eyes. Hello, little one, I whispered. You've inherited quite a story. Megan, radiant even through exhaustion, asked softly, what would Dad say? I smiled. That she's perfect. And that he's been watching over us all along. In the days that followed, our home filled with new rhythms. Tiny cries, lullabies, rocking chairs, midnight feedings. 3 generations of Smith women finding our way together. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments.